Dr. Benab will be bringing you to the current events. And then the last half hour, we'll have time for question and answer. Good morning and thank you for coming here. My name is Bahram Zandi. I'm from Maryland Green Party. I'm a delegate. I'm also with the International Committee of the Green Party. I'm a delegate to the Global Green Network, alternate delegate to the American Continent Network of the Greens, and originally from Iran. I felt that the issues of Iran and basically the Middle East is so complicated that needs a lot of background information, which unfortunately there are a lot of misinformation and disinformation about this region. So I'm going to start from almost very beginning. Actually, my first slide was about the Homo sapiens coming out of Africa, but I'm not going to go that far, 100,000. So I'm going to actually come down to 10,000 years ago. About 10,000 years ago, people who we call today Indo-Europeans or Aryans moved to the area that we call the Iranian Plateau, which is the region from China to Mediterranean. That's the historical Iranian Plateau. And there are different theories where they came from. This is the most acceptable. They came from the Caucasus, probably. Another theory was that they came from the Siberia. And once they came, they met with people who were there before. In Iran, there were Semitic people, Sumerians, who invented the alphabet. They are where it's this area, Babylonia, and it's called the cradle of civilization. Actually, agriculture developed there, domestication of animals, invention of the wheel. So these people came and met with them here. In India, they met with the Dravidians in Mohenjo-daro. Dravidians were there. They actually had clashes there. And then in Europe, they met with the Vikings. So basically you see that the Indo-Europeans formed the population of Iran, basically Iranian Plateau, India, and Southern Europe. In my first slide, I had shown that the word Iran is derived from the word Arya, means land of the Aryans. Here's another diagram of the migration of the Indo-Europeans. Again, as you see, they come from somewhere in the Caucasus into Iranian Plateau, Southern Europe, and India. Here's another depiction of this movement. So here again, another migration point for the Indo-Europeans. What we know about them is through the historical artifacts, also mainly the language. And you know there are 3 language groups in the world, the main families. The biggest one is Indo-European language family, or Aryan, which includes Indian, Persian, Latin, Greek, Germanic, Slavic, Romance. They're coming from basically Sanskrit and Latin. Their roots are based on those. The second group is the Semitic family, which is Arabic, Hebrew, Assyrian. And the third group is Turkic, Turkish, Mongolian, Korean, Hungarian, Finnish, and Estonian. And this region has all these 3 today. That's why it's important to know where each comes from. So a lot of the diversities today, multi-ethnic, multinational issues, have basic historical roots. Now I give you an example of an Indo-European language comparison, English and Persian, for instance. You see the similarities there. The word father in English is pedar in Persian. Mother is madar. brother is Baradar, daughter is Tochter, it's like Tochter in German, and so forth. This slide has more comparisons because it's so small. I go to the next one. This one, you see the numbers. Look at the numbers. Number 1 is Yek, Persian, is Jeden in Polish, Ek in Hindi, Adin in Russian. Number 2, Do, is Do, Du, Dva, Dva, you see the similarities. Number 4, Chahar, Chitiri. Number 5, Panj, Panj is the same in exactly Polish. Shesh, 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 they're all the same. Then there is 7, 8, 9, 10, Da, Desit, Deka, 100, Sad, Sto in Russian, 200 is Dvist in Persian, Dvist in Russian, exactly. So you see the similarities. And there are a lot more. Here are more comparisons. Basically, when you want to compare languages, you need to go to the roots, numbers, pronouns are amazing, the verb to be, the word for father, mother, the very basic words have not changed in 5,000 or 10,000 years. 10,000 is the time when the Europeans separated. And so still, you see the similarities in these. Here's another comparison. Now, here's some chronological dates. The Elamite kingdom, where the Semitic civilization that was in the Iranian plateau, where the Aryans met. Then there is the first government of the Aryans in Iranian plateau was the Mede government. They built their empire. There are 3 tribes mainly who entered the Iranian plateau: the Medes, the Parsis, and the Parthis. The Medes went to the west, Parthis to the east, and Persians went to the middle or south. The first government was formed in the west, where is today's Kurdistan and Azerbaijan. And the Parsis were in where is today's Shiraz or Persepolis. But what happened was that they were first having clashes between each other, but the Parsis and the Medes made peace, and as a sign of that, they married their son to their daughter, as they used to do that when they had peace agreements. So the daughter of the Mede king married the son of the Persian king, and the result was a son named Cyrus. And when Cyrus came to power, he actually united the two. And he built what we call the first empire in the world. What's unique about him is that unlike the others that they would go and destroy another country and totally change it and make them obey and change their language or religion, Cyrus became very innovative. He gave freedom of language, freedom of religion, and freedom of work to his people. So that gained him a lot of popularity. When he entered Babylon, instead of destroying their temple, he went and bowed to the god of Babylonia as Marduk and recognized him. And he said that you can all stay the way you are, and I give you autonomy. So this was the first concept of empire, where he said, you keep whatever you have, religion, ideology, king, and we protect you in a bigger umbrella, under a bigger umbrella. So that concept of empire was born there, which we still today, even now in the form of European Union, it's one of the world's most practical systems, lasting even until now, where you have a big government formed that protects the other governments under it. This is his tomb in Iran. Then later, during the time of Darius, the Achaemenid empire became as big as you see it here. It comes from China to Mediterranean, basically includes all of the Iranian plateau.
What is that, Achaemenid?
Achaemenid, or Achaemenid, they call it here.
Achaemenid.
Achaemenid. To control this area, they had to have three capitals, Persepolis, Shush, and Sardis in Anatolia. They invented the first postal system, the first taxing system, the first coins. Basic ideas of ruling a vast empire was invented at that time.
What year was that?
This is 500 BC. You see this on this map? 500 BC, the beginning of the dark green is the Empire of Cyrus. The light green is what Darius added to that. Now, Iran is at this crossroad. There are constantly other nomads trying to overrun it. There are always Turkish tribes from the east. Turks, Tatars, Mongols, they were all related. They're always trying to attack Iran the same way they tried to attack China. And this is a view of Persepolis today. And this is a drawing of what it looked like in its original time. This was one of the capitals of the Iranian Empire. Now, this empire ended when Alexander invaded Iran, and that's 330 BC. And from that time till about 138, about almost 200 years, the Greeks were ruling Iran. So there you see another cultural effect, which basically is not that different. What always amazes me is that in this country you always read about Romans and Greeks. Romans and Greeks. You forget about the third cousin, the Iranians. They were the same people, the same culture, and as you see here, they ruled, they overlapped, and they are, they were even interrelated as it used to be. They would intermarry the kings. So, but it's always missing in the political history here you take in school or in the media. The Iranians are always something different, as you see in the film 300. The Greeks are portrayed with white guys. The Iranians are portrayed with black people or something totally different. And this is way, way different than what it really is in historical context. As you see here, they are really interactive, intermingled. And the religion, here after that Greek dynasty, the parties who were in the Aryans who were in the east of Iran take over, and they actually promote Mithraism. Mithraism is a sun-worshipping god. Now this transfers to Greece and Rome. They worship the sun god, which, as you see, the Christian holidays is basically built upon the Mithraist holidays, and they are still celebrated in Iran. For instance, the winter solstice was the birth of Mithra. It's the longest night, shortest day, so they believe that the sun, baby sun, is being born that day, and that was December 21st, the winter solstice. Interestingly, Iranian calendar is still the old calendar, which is the astrological calendar. It starts on the spring equinox, which is the same first day of Aries in astrological calendar. Iran still has that calendar, and you see the leftover reminders of that in the Western calendar. you see that September in Latin means 7th, October in Latin means 8th, November Latin means 9th, December means 10th. That shows they're counting from March, not from January. So beginning of the year in all of the Greek and Roman Empire was in the spring, as it is still today in Iran. And yet, you know, most people don't question it, and the name of the months are kept that way. So anyway, after the Parthian Empire, and all the time, you know, Greeks, Romans, Persians are like three cousins always fighting. There were long wars between Iran, Greece, and Rome all the time. And here is the end of Parthian Empire, and the third empire is Sasanian is formed. Now Sasanian makes Zoroastrianism an official religion. Zoroaster or Zarathustra is the prophet of this religion. It's a continuation of Mithraism. It still considers light, sun, symbol of the good God, and darkness, symbol of evil. He introduces this duality, which later translates into Judaism, and the concept of heaven and hell starts in Judaism and Christianity because of Zarathustra. Zoroastrianism here's that has that effect. Zoroastrianism became official religion. Now, Zoroastrianism unfortunately has a caste system with it that, similar to the Hindu caste system, divides people into different categories. The military, the farmers, peasants, and businessmen. You're born in that caste, you cannot change it. So this brought this vast class difference system in that government. Therefore, it made a lot of unhappiness among the people. So that's one of the reasons when, as I was telling you, nomads were always trying to attack Iran. Another group of nomads who wanted to attack Iran were the newly Muslim Arabs from Arabia. They wanted to attack Iran, and they saw an opportunity of weak government and people not too happy. They attacked Iran and they could conquer it. And here's the beginning of the Arab Empire, 641. This is the Sassanid Empire at its greatest extent. You see that it has all the Iranian plateau. These nomads who would attack Iran, they were good warriors, they were good conquerors, but about running a country, they were not good at. So they would always have to resort to Iranians to run their country for them. So the same way, the Arabs actually had Iranians run the country, and they actually managed to find Turkish tribes to help them. So 3 Turkish dynasties appear in Iran: Ghaznavis, Seljuqis, and Khwarezmshahis. This is the different governments that formed in Iran. This is the Seljuk Empire. Seljuks, as I said, they were a Turkish tribe, and they managed to have the languages of some regions change into Turkish. Anatolia and Azerbaijan, from this time on, start speaking Turkish. I mean, because of the Seljuk influence. The same thing happened in Europe when Mongol tribes later on went. And Hungary, Finland, and Estonia speak a Turkic language that's different than the other countries in Europe that speak Indo-European. So that's one of the effects. And then there are these local governments after words that were formed, including this government of Samanyan that had their capital in Bukhara. A lot of these governments would not have their own prejudice on language the way the Arab government had. The Arab government was very chauvinistic on trying to change languages to Arabic. They did that in Lebanon, Egypt, but in Iran it didn't happen because the Turkish governments that came were actually Persianophiles. They preferred Persian. They promoted Persian and Persian poets. Including in Bukhara, the university there, we had Persian poets who promoted Persian. And that's the reason still we speak Persian and we can still read and understand the same poetry that's left over from that time. You probably have heard the name of some of the poets, Rudaki, Saadi, Kharazmi, Omar Khayyam. You have probably. And this is also the time that the so-called, they call it Islamic science and civilization, which is actually all Iranian. I mean, again, Orientalism does its work. Most of these people were all Iranian scientists, but Orientalists call them Arab or Muslim. See, Muslim art, for instance, is an oxymoron. I mean, Islam basically bans art. So all that's there is it's Iranian science, Iranian. Like Iranians developed the solar calendar, they solved the binomial equation. Omar Khayyam did all that. He developed the solar calendar, he solved the first quadratic equation, and Razi invented synthetic alcohol. A lot of this development was done at this time. This is the Middle Ages in Europe. It's totally dark ages. At this time here in Iran, all these sciences are flourishing. Then another horde, nomad tribe comes, which is really devastating, Genghis Khan, which was basically because of the error of the local kings that did not appreciate Genghis Khan's gesture of friendship. Genghis Khan sent some emissaries and wanted to become friends, but the local king killed them. I mean, he sent another emissary, then they killed him again. But this made Genghis Khan very upset, and that was a very big mistake. Genghis Khan's attack was probably the biggest in history. They're estimating something like 60 million people killed in this whole time. And they were not only killing people, they were also killing dogs, cats. They were against civilization. They were razing all these buildings to the ground level because they lived in tents. So this is a big disaster. They even burnt books, which is a very big. Then the Timurs came. But again, after the first conqueror passes, then people who stay and want to run this country, they have to hire Iranians. And here's an example for you. The Mongols in India become Persianophiles again. They hire Iranians to build the Taj Mahal. This is a Persian garden structure. Everything inside is in Persian. And you see that, again, Persian culture survives because the conquerors liked them and preferred the civilization to their own. So these Mongols, they stay, they become Muslim, they adopt Persian measures. Here's a first it's account of Iranian astronomy in 1236 to 1300. It shows the Iranians knew the solar system and the planets' orbits. They developed it then.
Was that before Galileo?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. Until we come to now 1500. there again we have a long, a big, large Iranian dynasty forming again, the Safavid dynasty. See, this is the time when the Europeans are becoming colonialists. You know, they're conquering different lands, the Spanish, English, Portuguese. And Safavid Empire basically is the same size as the previous one. So at this time, still you see Iran is strong. The demise comes later. This is a view of the capital, Isfahan, of the Safavid dynasty. This is a polo field, which was an Iranian game. This is another Iranian design building. Okay, the demise comes later on, as I am now pointing. Iran starts losing territories. Iraq is lost to the Ottomans in 1555. Afghanistan lost to the British. The British, Iran, China, and Thailand were the countries in Asia that were not colonized. But the superpowers always wanted to make them. So the British tried, and they managed to get Hong Kong out of China. So here, they got Afghanistan out of Iran. Then Russia attacked Iran with modern weaponry, and they lost Caucasus with these agreements. Then the Russian and British start competing with influence. They get license for exports from Iranian government. The Iranian government was weak and needed money, so they would loan them money in return for these prices. And here I have another date here in 1971. Bahrain was separated from Iran. These are the maps that shows where Iran has lost the territories. Iran had a constitutional revolution. In 1905, Iran had a constitution. Then, oil is discovered in Iran. The first oil well is in Iran, and Anglo-Iranian Oil Company is formed. The First World War, Russian Revolution. Iran is the first country to recognize Lenin, because Lenin declares that everything, all agreements with the Tsars, Romanovs, are void. So he's internationalist. Finland gets its land back, the Baltics get their land back. So Iran is the first government to recognize Lenin, and Lenin wanted to give all the Caucasus back. But then he dies very soon, and Stalin comes, and he builds another empire. And then in all those territories that Iran had lost, Stalin builds new republics, totally fictitious, and they never come back. Then at the end of the First World War, Versailles Treaty, the British carve all the Ottoman Empire territory. They create Arabia, Jordan, Iraq, Kuwait, Palestine Mandate. The French create Syria and Lebanon Mandate. And the British influence to change Iranian government. And they managed to make the Iranian military man named Reza Khan to make a coup against the king. And he wanted to become president. He liked Ataturk. But the British told him, no, you should become a king. So he called himself a new king. But then he became so proud of himself that he thought he really has power. So he actually sided with Germany during the war. And Germany sold Iran the first steel factory, which the British torpedoed on the way. And they built a lot of roads in Iran and railroads. But this comes to the point of the nuclear technology in Iran today. What does the West really want about it? It's not that Iran is going to build a bomb. It's this technology the West doesn't want Iran to have. It's a continuation of that time when the advanced world wants to stay advanced and wants to leave the underdeveloped. So this is the same thing happening at that time. So Iran's technology was delayed by 50 years. The steel factory is a mother industry, and Iran could not get it because the British torpedoed. So anyway, after that, the Allied forces invade Iran, And there is a Tehran conference, Churchill, Roosevelt, Stalin, where they divide these conquests. And Iran becomes in the territory under the US, and Eastern Europe becomes under Stalin. So this is the reason why in the future you don't see Russia interfering in Iranian affair when the US does. See, now US replaces Britain in this world dominance and follows the same footstep. 1951, Iran has a very popular prime minister, Dr. Mossadegh. He nationalized Iranian oil against the British. And British take the case to the World Court in The Hague. Mossadegh goes there, defends Iran, he wins. He wins the case. At that time, he's popular in the US. He becomes Man of the Year on Time magazine. So he's under this feeling that US is a new friend and British were the real enemy. He didn't know that things are changing. So, as you know, in '53, the MI6 talked CIA into doing a coup in Iran. And they overthrow Mossadegh, they put the young Shah back in power, who becomes now a new dictator under US support. And he followed US policies. As you see in the example of Egypt, to destroy all the political alternatives and keeping only the religion alive because they thought religion would fight communism. This is the basic Cold War policy of the US, which now you see in Egypt that US favored this the Muslim Islamic Brotherhood over the secular government. There was no alternative because they were all destroyed by Mubarak and Sadat. Same way in Iran, all the alternatives were destroyed because they were afraid of communism and they would let religion grow because they thought religion automatically takes care of the left. And so in '79, there was this big Iranian people uprising, and the US withdraws support from the Shah and supports in favor of these Islamists, which is basically in the same line of the Green Belt doctrine of Brzezinski, that he said from Poland to Afghanistan, I suffocate the Soviet Union with this belt of religion. And this is what happened. And the Islamists in Iran basically derailed and betrayed the Iranian revolution. This is the end of my part. And now I ask my colleague, Dr. Younes Parsavanab, retired professor from Strayer University, to continue bring you up to date until the current time. Thanks.
Thank you very much for inviting me, and I'm very happy to be with you. And I know how much Green Party cares for peace, world peace, and how much Green Party has a good record on fighting against wars for peace. So I would like to start my brief presentation by mentioning the fact that, again, the probability of war against Iran or American intervention, military intervention in Iran, has been increasing in the last even 2-3 days. Actually, the probability of war or probability of American military intervention into Iran has been subject of a lot of estimation and guesstimation. The people are guessing, and the probability goes up and down in the last 4 or 5 years, and especially in recent time. So I would like to focus on 2 points. One is, what is the most important aspect of American foreign policy in the Middle East by focusing on Iran? And why Iran so important strategically for U.S. Foreign policy strategy? For great number of us, 1945 is a turning point in history because that's the end of the Second World War. But in a way, 1945 is again turning point for another reason, and that is immediately after the Second World War, United States emerged as the most powerful country in the world, most powerful imperial power. In other words, US up until then used to be one of the great powers. France, England, Germany, all these countries, Japan, they were all great powers. But after the war, United States emerges as hegemonic power, achieves hegemony all over. So once US gets into that position, immediately after the Second World War, then in the State Department, planners, they come up with a plan to globalize Monroe Doctrine. And as you know, Monroe Doctrine only was applied in 1820s by President Monroe in the United States, only to Latin America. That Latin America, including Caribbean islands, should be backyard of US. No European has any permission or the right to intervene in the internal affairs of Latin America without US permission. That was essence of Monroe Doctrine. After the Second World War, as US emerges as a hegemonic power, then US plans to globalize Monroe Doctrine. So they pick up 10 strategic, important areas in the world. Number one strategic, important area was what today we call Greater or New Middle East. Iran, Turkey, good number of Arab countries, and in fact today it extends to Central Asian republics like Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan or Tajikistan, and then Caucasian republics of Azerbaijan, Georgia, and Armenia. All of them are Greater Middle East. So US was planning to make this area as its another important backyard. But for 3 reasons, US postpones this policy. This is 1950, 51, 52. At that point, US postpones this policy. They don't implement. One was the rise of Soviet Union. Soviet Union by 1951-52 is rising as a major power, which later on becomes a superpower competing with the US. The second reason was the vast emergence of national liberation movements in Africa, Asia, and Latin America. And the third one was very, very important rise of workers' social democratic movement in Atlantic Europe, which used to be ally of United States and still it is. So for those 3 important challenges, US postpones its policy. What was the policy? Globalizing Monroe Doctrine and making, number one, Middle East as the important backyard of the United States. But now, what happens in 70s and 80s, we see the decline, fall and decline of those 3 challenges. National liberation movements are either aborted, or they are castrated, or they are overthrown. Social democratic workers' movement in Europe becomes completely castrated or bastardized or completely wiped out, and Soviet Union disintegrates into many, many countries and disappears. So this brings us to 1991. Those three challenges are gone. Now, United States, as a head of world system of capital, has wonderful time, opportunity to globalize Monroe Doctrine. So here we are in the Middle East. Middle East is one of the 10 strategic areas of the world, or regions of the world. Maybe number one for many, many reasons. For example, when you look at the map, you will see that Middle East connects three continents: Asia, Africa, and Europe. And look at the heart of the Middle East, Iran. Iran has the same position. If you look at the western part of Iran, people inside western part of Iran have historical, cultural ties with the Arab civilization. From the north, Iran has ties with Soviet Russian civilization. From eastern part, Iran has vast cultural, historical ties with Indian civilization. So Iran is not only important for oil, but because of its strategic location and human forces inside Iran. That individuals, Iran is one of the most important multicultural, multinational societies in that part of the world. You have a great number of non-Persians living in Iran. Persians are 40% of the population, but the rest of the population, 60% of Iranians, are not Persian. They are Turks, Arabs, and many, many other nationalities, Assyrians and Armenians. So Iran is strategically very important for oil, natural gas, and it's very important to emphasize that that mere fact that Iran has oil, well, you can always say that Canada has oil too, but quality of oil is very important in modern technology. You know, you cannot operate your computers, you cannot have non-stop flights without Persian oil, or oil from Iran, or from Kuwait, or from Iraq. Canadian oil is wonderful for electricity, heating rooms, but it will be very, very difficult for any airline to use Canadian oil for non-stop flights from Washington, D.C., or from Baltimore, or from New York to Europe. It will be impossible. Yes, Mexico has a lot of oil, but Mexican oil quality, in terms of quality, is not like oil in Kuwait, Iraq, or Iran. So Iran and the Middle East has that important strategic importance, oil and natural gas. And the second factor, as I mentioned, the location of Iran and location of the Middle East between three major continents. So that makes us to understand why a lot of analysts in the last 10 years have been guessing and have been estimating about the probability of war. If you sit down with American politicians, the congressmen and senators, all the people that they are working for the State Department say why United States may intervene militarily as a last option. Why? Because they will say, well, because Iran is developing nuclear energy. Then you will ask them, what's wrong with it? Every country has that right. They will say, no, Iran is developing it for weaponization rather than for peaceful purposes. Iran is trying to develop nuclear energy for weaponization. I think this is just a charade. It's an excuse to invade Iran, in case, if it happens. In other words, exactly the same drama, the same scenario that happened 10 years ago in connection with Iraq. Nobody doubts that Saddam Hussein is one of the most undemocratic, he was, and despotic ruler. I believe that majority of Iranians, whether they are inside Iran or outside Iran, they have no doubt that Islamic regime is one of the most undemocratic, despotic regimes today in the world. But all Iranians, they know that if US finally decides to invade Iran, it will not be because Iranian rulers, at this point the Islamic Republic, is planning to advance its nuclear energy for weaponry reasons, or purposes, or to make a nuclear bomb. So why US is trying to invade Iran? Well, actually, there are a lot of conditions that will make you to think that the United States will not finally invade Iran. Because they have been talking about it for the last 10 years, except that, okay, at this point that we are talking, again, possibility or probability of that invasion has increased. The United States, if it does, if US invades Iran, it will be because of US wants to have oil hegemony in the world. There was a time that the United States had hegemony, cultural hegemony. But today, the United States has lost every aspect of that cultural hegemony. And what I mean by cultural hegemony, the United States was very influential in the Middle Eastern countries, diplomatically, politically, economically, even in the area of art, music, and cinema. The United States had hegemony. US now has lost every aspect of that hegemony. The only hegemony US has is military. The only way people of the Middle East that they can be scared is because of American bombing. Nothing more than that. People of Pakistan, people of Turkey, and people of Jordan, they have the highest percentage of population openly saying that they consider the United States as their enemy. That wasn't the case 50 years ago, even 60 years ago, even 35 years ago. Now this has been completely changed because they know the United States invaded Afghanistan not because of Taliban. In fact, the United States was instrumental in training and advancing the cause of Taliban in Afghanistan. The United States did not invade Iraq because Saddam Hussein was despotic. The United States did not invade Libya because Gaddafi was another despotic ruler. All of them were despotic. Their people can testify. But US didn't invade those countries because those three leaders were despotic. In fact, practically speaking, the king of Saudi Arabia is more despotic than those three leaders, if you compare and contrast.